Mark Howard, and this is my son Ian Howard. And we're coming back by popular demand. No, just kidding, because we've had a lot of responses from our first video together on Rapport, and we told you we'd be coming back with a follow-up, and that was about 1.5 years ago. But we're here again, and we just want to follow up on the on talking together about the understanding of rapport from the teachings of Sydney Banks.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back with my father and do another video, and we're really appreciative of the responses that we did receive from the first one, and I think we wanted to continue with that discussion.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about rapport, and again, to start off, really in terms of either working with your clients as a life coach or mental health therapist or some kind of health person, or just in your daily life, rapport is really a state that we live in. It's really seeing in the other person that they have the health and well-being available to them at any moment. And to really know that, to really sit with that, already brings you into the feeling of rapport. That sense that they are just like you. They are the same spiritual energy of love and understanding and well-being that's within everybody. And everybody has a wisdom to find solutions to their own lives. Is that how you would see it?
Yeah, I think you brought up, I like what you said. I think it's really interesting. The first thing what struck me is that people, immediately all people have rapport within them, and that they're you. I think that's something that's really lost on, even when you meet someone at a party or a client. A lot of times we see people, and especially in the therapeutic field, in the mental health field, we see people as diagnoses.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that can skew our humanness. And I think it's important to try and remember that people, like, if we're looking at the teachings of Sydney Banks, people are a product of their thinking. No matter what their diagnosis is, no matter who they are, whether they're, you're at a work party or a work function, it's the holiday season, you're at a holiday party, and it's your CEO, your boss, or a coworker. People are kind of moving through life with their own brand of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing we're doing. So you don't have to see people as so different from you. And I think that's the first part of rapport building for me. And we talked about that last time, but it's an important point to touch on again, which is this idea that that's the first entrance into rapport. And it also helps you get back to rapport when you've lost rapport.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, especially in a therapeutic relationship or a coaching relationship, we may get to a point with someone where they've never been before. Mm-hmm. They've never felt this level of health or this level of happiness, or maybe this level of sadness. Sometimes that can happen in a therapeutic session, especially. And so we want to just try and remember that people are just there, and we can get them back to a nice place, or continue on that journey with them. And saying that, we may have to reestablish rapport or reestablish permission to work with that person.
Yeah. I heard a lot of people in response to our first video, they still have some difficulty figuring out how to be in rapport, Mm-hmm. And I really think maybe the issue is, I know I had to see it for myself, that you had to get your own thinking out of the way. Yeah. Like you were saying, either as a life coach or a health professional, or even as a friend, you had to get your thinking of the person out of your head. Yeah. And one way that has helped me is to really know in my heart that everybody is the same, like you were saying. All of us are the same spiritual energy. That helps a lot to sit in that. Yeah. That really moves you toward that. But our own, if we're doing our work as a therapist or a life coach, our own thinking gets in there, right?
Right.
You can't have session with someone without our own thinking coming in the way, but I've just learned to clear it and come back to that feeling, which really is love and understanding. And it's really powerful. I think the story we talked about last time around the clinic you used to work in, people really felt the understanding you had for them, that you really saw them as healthy and fine. They were okay. And that goes a long way, just that piece there. But I think getting into that feeling is to really kind of clear out your own thoughts and assumptions, your own opinions, and your own judgments of the other person, even in a relationship. And if you can clear that out, you kind of fall right into that nice feeling.
Yeah. And what brings to mind what you're saying for me is a lot of times in the room when I'm doing therapy with someone, you can easily get caught up in someone else's brand of thinking.
Yeah.
And this relates to other relationships that you have, but in particular, we're talking about a therapeutic relationship or a life coaching relationship. But they can get you into their thinking, and you can start to really think about the things that they're struggling with, and you really can get caught up in that being your goal to heal. And you may not have the answers in that moment. There's times in a room where I don't necessarily have the answers for somebody, and the same with a friendship or a love relationship. I don't have the answers right away. And what I try to do is, like you said, clear that a bit, or just allow myself to see that I'll get there. Mm-hmm. That I don't have to worry too much about and I think that goes really well with one of the things that people were saying, which is, how do I get into that therapeutic or that coaching relationship with someone? And I think you don't always know that answer in that moment, and you just kind of settle yourself and allow yourself to take the journey with the person or find the answers along the way. I think a lot of times in our education, we're taught to kind of immediately respond and know what that response should be, and I don't think that's the case always. And I don't know that that's authentic, right? That's a big piece of being authentic, is telling someone, well, here's where I'm at. I'm kind of trying to help you understand this, and I'm on the journey with you.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot. I talk about that as being human. Yeah. Kind of another piece of rapport, which is really just being in a relationship with another person or a group, And I talk about a lot that we're human. And so that means, like you say, it's not about knowing the answer. You're not going to know the answer. It'll come as you begin to have, a conversation with that person in front of you, or with that group, or with that friend. And so there are times too, for me, like I'm listening and I just don't know what to say, or nothing comes to me, and I'll just say, I'm not really seeing anything to share with you yet, but let's keep talking, and I know one of us will see something. Yeah. So it's being very human. Yeah. I think another way that comes up for me is sometimes I will try to explain something, and I could see it's going over the head of my client, and I will see that, and then I would kind of apologize for that. I kind of say, sorry about that. I kind of got a little away from the point here. Let's go back and start again. And where were we? And people really respond to you being human like that, Yeah. Have you noticed anything in your recent work? You're managing people now, and you're running a lot of groups. Is there anything that you see that happens when you go in with rapport and a good feeling?
Yeah, I mean, right now I am, or what you said made me think of some of the groups I run, and a lot of times I'm using a lot of psychological principles, the 3 principles, but also trying to incorporate some other things that people are familiar with, so they don't feel so outside of the box with it. But anyhow, one way that I try to do that is, if people get a little lost, I'll just go back to what I'm saying, because I can get really outside of that and kind of lead people, I think, a little too far, because I get caught up in the feeling they're having, and I can see them starting to follow the path. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's back it up, and I'll go back to an original point, and then try to lead them again. And I think those are important pieces to remember. And you bringing that up brought that up for me,
Yeah.
which is in that in that kind of way with groups. The other thing is I'm supervising some therapists, and I talk a lot about some of these things, about these principles, but I use them in the idea of rapport and allowing someone to be where they are and not having to, as long as people are safe and relatively doing well, you don't have to feel like every time you're in a room with somebody, you're executing goals.
Yeah.
You don't want to get too caught up in that idea, because then you can push people in directions maybe they're not ready for, or that kind of stuff. Or you can get away from your own message. You can start to get away from your own message. So I think it's important to always be looking at that idea that you're always kind of going back into rapport with people, and you can get ahead of yourself. You can kind of bring your own health into it, and that can affect it a little bit. So you want to be able to just say to your client, or to the person that you're coaching, that like you said, I'm sorry, let's get back to where we were.
Yeah, that's a great point, and really about, I think one of the things we're sharing with this part of our rapport presentation is that it's okay to be yourself, really. I think a lot of times what I've heard since our last video is people are trying to be like Rapport or find that, and it's just being yourself. And you can hear from Ian and myself that we don't always do something that might be very helpful in a way. We might get lost ourselves, or we might just get caught up in too much thinking, but we know there's a feeling to get to. And we know when the feeling is off, we can recognize it. It comes to us, doesn't it? That the feeling's off. And then we just come back to that feeling of we're working together with this other person, or we really want to have understanding for this person, or we really know they have the answers, not us. They have the answers for their lives. So I really want people from this video to really feel at ease at trying to really develop a deeper sense of relationship with their coaching clients, therapy clients, or with their friends and family. That if you just come from this level of understanding that we're all the same, living our lives through the way we use thought, people feel that. That's what everybody's looking for at first, is having understanding. Excuse me. And that goes a long way, as we talked about the examples in our first video. So I really am happy that you listened to us today, and hope you found it helpful. Anything that you would like to say toward the end here?
Yeah, I really like what you brought up, and that's the idea of confidence, And I think a big piece of rapport and what we were saying today is that you want to also feel confident in your client.
Yeah.
Confident that your client has the answer somewhere, and all you're really doing is leading them to that insight. And so sometimes if you're off and you feel the rapport changing, or you're still trying to build rapport, a real way to tap into that is to see that people have the confidence to see that people carry that within themselves. And that can really get you back to just feeling good with someone. And that's really rapport, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just feeling good with someone. And that's a nice path there. So
Yeah.
I think that's a nice way to close it.
Yeah. So thank you for listening to us. We're going to come back as we've been working out ways that Ian and I start to work together more. But we'll be coming back with other ways in terms of sharing this understanding that Sydney Banks brought to the world. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could just email me at drmarkhoward@comcast.net. drmarkhoward@comcast.net. How could people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, it was nice talking with you, Dad.
Yeah, nice talking with you too.
Yeah, they can get in contact with me. My email is ianhowardlmft@gmail.com. ianhowardlmft@gmail.com.
So thanks again for listening to us, and hope you have a good rest of the day, and look for our next video in this series. We're going to talk about listening and how to deepen that connection to your clients or friends or family. Thank you.
Thank you very much.